part of what the Celtic Cultural Alliance's purpose is to support and educate the cultural heritage. And there is, of course, a rather large Celtic population here in Wales.
The Celts are the only one that actually do these things. No other group of people does these cultural affairs.
It's absolutely worth sitting out in the rain for.
The thing that's been amazing for me over my years of affiliation with the organization is how much overlap there is between the Celtic nations and some of the other nations. You know, for example, Spanish culture is very closely related. We have a board member who's Greek because he sees the connection between the Celts' impact on Greece. It's amazing to see how connected the world is, and our goal is not to separate the Celtic nations, but rather to distinguish their unique characteristics and then look at how they blend with the rest of the world.
Do you feel like festivals like this help keep Celtic spirit alive?
It's an imagination thing. No, it doesn't keep Celtic spirit alive. Well, it brings people together. It brings culture and it brings music out and connects people to their roots. And everybody wants to be Celtic for the day, but they go back to work Monday morning. I wish Celtic traditions were still intact, but indeed they're fading fast.
As far as I'm concerned, it's still alive, and I basically have taken the same approach that George Bain did in the 1930s. There were less than a dozen people in the British Isles who could still do Celtic artwork. He systematically brought it back into the school system so that make it as a living craft. He stressed that you shouldn't just copy the old designs, but you should treat it like music, learn a few basic motifs like chords, and then start composing your own pieces.
Okay.
So we learned a lot of Gaelic words, kind of. Well, besides what's unicorn, like Fesh is Gaelic, and Oireachtas is Gaelic, and those are two like our major Fesh competition, and then Oireachtas is a major competition, so that's all Gaelic.
If you look around, you see a lot of commercialization of things. You know, this is not, I didn't really expect to be set up across the street from Fat Daddy's Barbecue. You know, I think there's only one place selling haggis and a couple of, you know, ancient type foods. So I was a little disappointed with that. But you get what you get. You got to go with what the people that are running it, what they want to do, and they're trying to draw people. So that's the whole bottom line. Get as many people into the community as you can. But it's a lot of fun. We go all over the place.
I can't leave because we won't find them.
Okay.
That's the way it's done right there.
This guy is going to he has to go through the test. Oh my god, that's awesome. Alright, so during the Highlands War, it was like 1600s, just turn of the century, when England and Scotland were fighting. So the Scots were not allowed to have weapons under English laws. So to avoid having their training disrupted, they would train with like large boulders and trees. Because, I mean, it's kind of hard to just find a tree as a weapon because it's just growing there. But if you throw it 30 feet, you can do a lot more too. So that's why they train with boulders and trees.
Why do you go to Celtic festivals?
Because I'm 3/4 Scottish and this is awesome.
To light and blue, there's nothing more a man could do. Don't get your bollocks out twist. Settle down, don't take a fit. You drank a demon straight from hell. You almost nearly won as well. You wiped the floor with victory. Then puked until you fell asleep.
the Tuatha comes all this series of different mythological sagas, and the really famous one is called the Toyn Saga, spelled T-A-I-N.
Yeah.
And it really takes place in the northern part of Ireland. And one of the main storylines in there is the story of a fellow called Cuchulainn. Have you heard of Cuchulainn?
Yes.
Okay, so you know how he got his name, that whole myth? His name was originally Setanta, and he was actually thought to have been the product of his father was Lugh. He had to actually act as the guard dog for the man who owned it until a new dog could be trained. The bull was another curse that had been put on the men of Ulster. Whenever they were in grave danger, they would all suffer from the pangs of labour. Right? So, of course, immediately they were all crippled with labour pains. Cuchulainn ended up tying himself up on a stone, and he died standing up. And there's that whole tradition, the legend about how he held his arm up with a sword in his hand, and someone tried to take his head off, and the sword came down and killed the other person, even when he was close to death. But that whole saga is all part of the Toyn Saga.
People today are very interested in all the Celtic ideas, stones, which is the very earliest written word ever. They still are trying to interpret exactly what it all talks about, but any place you find in Europe that has a sacred site like Newgrange or Stonehenge, they will have stones and writings on them. The birds represent wisdom, the griffin is flight, the spiral was balance.
Well, this is Yggdrasil, the tree of life here. Yggdrasil was the world ash, the tree that ran between the heavens, earth, and also there's a dragon at the bottom in the roots, which is in hell, and this is Nishog. And the tree has got golden acorns of wisdom, and these acorns drop into the pool of water that the salmon of wisdom basically lives in, and he eats the acorns, and then when a great hero, somebody like Finn McCool, eats the fish, the salmon of wisdom, he gains all the knowledge of the birds and the languages of all the creatures of the earth.
You'd see a triskel in the centre, but when they mark time, they observed it from a hill called Ishnock, and that is the mythic centre of Ireland. And there's a stone there called All Namuirin, the stone of division, and that was where the old sacred tree of life grew, 26 miles high, and connected all that was beneath the middle world, and it reached out into the heavens above. Because in the early days they believed the spirit only soars in the centre, in one place, when you're connected to the three worlds. And around it moves time. And when they marked it out, they marked the equinoxes, the solstices, and the 4 Celtic spiritual festivals called Imbolc, Beltane at May Day, Lunasa in August the 1st, and Samhain, Halloween. And there's 2 halves to it. At May Day we cross into the light half, and at Halloween we cross from the light into the dark, a day and a night, the seen and the unseen, life and death, all very close. But the only place to find spirit wasn't chasing time, it was in the centre, where the old tree grows.
Something new.
See, we all live under the same tree, even if you're Chinese.
Some of the other pieces that I do use things like, we have triskelas, which are the 3-armed spirals. This represents the Celtic goddess, the maiden, the mother, and the old wise woman, the crone. So it's the cycles of life, growth, maturity, then finally wisdom and decay, and the cycle repeating itself over and over again. These are triskelas here, and these are trefoils here. These knots, those all have the number 3. Again, it's all for the 3 stages of the journey of life. And what these knots tell you is that you're ultimately going to come back to your starting place, and you need to explore and meander and wander as much as possible before you go through all 3 stages, because ultimately we all come back to the starting place.
It's the question about, is your life your own? It's not really. It really belongs to the 7 generations that came before you, and their hopes and their dreams and their struggles and their wishes, and you carry it in you. And then, of course, you have to be conscious of the 7 generations that come after you, where you only stand between 2 worlds. And if we're all full of ourselves all the time, we won't be going too far.
Words on a page can weigh a ton. When the past snow.